My name is Andrea Miller. My research area is primarily in crisis communication. Every crisis is different. You have to realize that every crisis has its own nuances. Nowadays, every Katrina, every hurricane that we cover, if it doesn't meet that Katrina standard, then the coverage may fall short. We did a lot of content analysis, looking at the different media coverage. We also talked to a lot of journalists. They were directly affected by Hurricane Katrina. They lost their homes also. They lost loved ones. We were in the control room here. WWL was broadcasting, and it was right after the levees broke. All of a sudden, this young lady, I believe she was a producer, she started crying and got up and ran out of the room. Out of that shot, that aerial shot, she picked out her house. And I think that they really realized that they were part of this, and this was something that was going to influence the way they covered everything from now on. Journalists are exposed to trauma often, okay? Whether they're the first one on the scene of a deadly accident, or if they're covering something like Hurricane Katrina. Everybody was just looking for any bits of information that they could get, and often it was from the legacy media, it was from television. All of the traditional or legacy media have a purpose, and that really comes through in crisis situations. People are very attached to their news media in New Orleans because they were there with them during Katrina. It's not that national doesn't have its place, because it absolutely does. They're symbiotic, because not every crisis is going to be in our backyard. So most of the time they're covering crisis events for us that are far away. And so we need their broad brush to tell us about whatever crisis that is. National press has a tendency to frame things, who's responsible? Who's to blame for this? Why weren't they evacuated? Who did this? Who didn't do this? Or the local journalists, they're worried about their neighbors and their communities. And so they tended to frame their stories in a way, what can we do to help our communities? What can we do to get out of this? How can I link you with the recovery agencies that we need to get help from? On the 10-year anniversary of Katrina, people need to remember how important their local news is. Not everybody's going to like every story they cover. Some stories they might not think are important. But when crisis hits your community, when a natural or a man-made disaster hits, you want those journalists on the ground advocating for you with their stories.